What's up, Psychedelic Investors? My name's James, and you're watching The Psychedelic Investor, your #1 news source for psychedelic stocks. Today, we bring you our second This Week in Psychedelic Stocks for the trading week ending on March 5th. In this episode, we will first discuss the sector-wide news for the week and then move into the discussion on the developments in individual companies like MindMed, Compass, Atai, Numinus, Red Light Holland, and Mydecine. I hope you enjoy the episode. To begin today, we have a study looking at the effects of microdosing psychedelics done by the Imperial College of London. And covering this trial is important because the results are not so positive. When covering this space, we need to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to succumb to the confirmation bias and look at all the evidence presented. High level, what this study found was that for the people who microdose psychedelics, significant improvements were observed in the domains of well-being, mindfulness, life satisfaction, and paranoia, and these results confirmed the psychological benefits reported by anecdotes. However, and this is the crux of the study's findings, when comparing the results of those who were actually taking psychedelic microdoses and those who were taking placebos, no significant differences were found between the placebo and microdose groups. In other words, both those who were actually taking microdoses of substances like LSD or psilocybin and those who were taking empty capsules received the purported benefits of microdosing. Or, as the lead author of the study, Balazs Zaghetti, puts it, anecdotal reports about the benefits of microdosing are almost certainly biased by the placebo effect. Now, were these findings to be accurate, it would have some ripple effects throughout the entire sector. First and foremost, it would throw cold water on two of MindMed's current areas of research, treating adult ADHD with LSD microdoses and testing the effects of LSD microdoses in general. I do want to state, however, that this is just one study that only had 191 participants. We will have to wait for other entities to either confirm these results or come to different conclusions. MindMed's general LSD microdosing study in particular is what I am waiting for. This study will be a randomized, placebo-controlled study evaluating the effects of daytime and evening administration of low doses of LSD on cognitive performance, sleep quality, mood, neuroplasticity markers, emotion regulation, quality of life, and immune system response. So once results from this trial become known, maybe next year, we'll have more data to compare this trial from the Imperial College of London. However, and I hesitate to say this because I am not a scientist, and those who conducted the study are, but just in reading the study, I feel that I spotted some possible issues with the procedure. The largest issue that I found was that the people running the study sought out people who were already microdosing before the study began. Then they had them abstain for a week, and then they took their baseline measurements for cognitive performance and mood. Next, the participants continued on their normal microdosing regimen, except that some people were now taking placebos. After microdosing twice a week for 4 weeks, or thinking they were microdosing while actually taking a placebo, they compared the new measurements to the baseline they took after a week of abstaining. Now, the problem I have here is that since they are measuring people who were already microdosing, and then they had some of them unknowingly stop, those in the placebo group, to me at least it looks like they may be drawing the wrong conclusions of what their data is showing. To me, what it seems to be measuring is what happens when people stop microdosing for a month. And here it seems that the results could possibly be interpreted to show that the people in the placebo group retained the benefits of microdosing even after a month of sobriety. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case, only that I could imagine that this be one possible way to view the results. I also did not like the fact that rather than measuring the effects of microdosing one substance, say LSD, in a set quantity, the study participants continued their own personal microdosing regime in whatever quantity they were already using with a variety of different compounds. Most people used either LSD or psilocybin, but some used other compounds like MDMA. There are just too many variables for me. Now again, I want to be clear, I'm not trying to throw doubt on this study. It was done in a professional manner by scientists, which again, I am not. But at the very least, its findings need to be replicated in perhaps a more controlled environment with fewer variables. I would also like to see the population being tested be psychedelic virgins, or at least people who are not already actively practicing microdosing. But having said that, there is no way around it. This study, taken at its face value, is a negative sign for companies hoping to eventually commercialize the practice of psychedelic microdosing. And it's a reminder that investing in this space, while I believe it will be very lucrative, is by no means a sure thing. If you're enjoying this episode, invest in the channel with your like and subscribe. Over time, you'll see your investment grow as we continue to bring you the information that you need to know before investing in the psychedelic medicines field. It will show the algorithm that people want to see this content and help the channel survive. Moving on, our next story today comes from my home and native land, Canada, where 15 healthcare professionals have begun a historic psilocybin training program. These professionals have received an exemption from the Canadian government to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to allow them to undergo their own guided psilocybin experience to better understand what patients are feeling. Once these healthcare professionals complete the 10-week training program, they will gain certification allowing them to perform psilocybin therapy on those in palliative care, or in other words, those who are close to death, to help ease their anxiety and depression. This program, just a pilot, so if the results are positive, we could see an expansion of this kind of program across Canada. This news item is very important because it shows that Canada is moving rapidly in the right direction when it comes to psychedelics. The current government has become increasingly pro-psychedelic over the past year, and this is but the latest in several policy proposals that have liberalized the space. As a Canadian, I am very excited to see this, and I hope that Canada continues to be a global leader in the psychedelic space moving forward. Flying over to the other side of the world, we have some news from Australia. There, former Chief of the Defence Forces, Chris Barrie, is calling for psychedelic compounds like psilocybin and MDMA to be rescheduled so that they can be used to treat mental health conditions, including depression and PTSD. In Australia, compounds like psilocybin and MDMA are currently Scheduled 9 or prohibited substances, and Barrie is calling for them to be moved to Schedule 8 or controlled drugs. He argues that this would enable them to be used by qualified therapists and experts so that we can widen the research base and start to see whether or not it's possible to go down this route towards better treatment on one hand and potentially a cure on the other hand. This is particularly pertinent for soldiers and ex-soldiers battling PTSD, as there is no real solution to this trauma. Barrie points out that overseas trials have gone well and hopes that Australia will follow suit. So, zooming out, even though Barrie's call has so far gone unheeded, the fact that more and more influential people across the globe are calling for an expansion to psychedelic medicine's research shows us the direction the world is moving in, and us investors in the space should be very bullish on the direction that the global legal framework is moving towards. Remember, the value in psychedelic stocks does not come from any sort of recreational legalization play as marijuana stocks did, but rather they should be viewed strictly as next-generation medicines. And the final story we have for you today, before moving on to company-specific news for companies like MindMed and Compass, is honestly a little bit crazy. Have you ever wanted to have a psychedelic experience, but you didn't want to consume psychedelic drugs? Well, a company called Luminate has released a smartphone app called the Luminate app, which promises to introduce a psychedelic-like state through using your phone's flashlight as a strobe light that you can view with your eyes closed. The state that you apparently enter is described as an altered state of consciousness between deep meditation and classic psychedelics. The inventors created this app because existing methods of exploring the subconscious, including years of meditation, training, or emerging psychedelic therapies, have significant barriers to accessibility. So, how does it work? Well, according to the inventors, when a light is flashed in a specific way, it causes the neurons in the brain to react and fire in a synchronized rhythm that safely guides the brain into a deeply meditative, semi-psychedelic state of consciousness. The result is an instant and effortless way to explore your subconscious. The ultimate goal of Luminate is to help alleviate our mental health care crisis and help people heal. As for what you apparently experience while looking at the strobe light that is attuned to specific frequencies, one of the founders said, People typically report the visual experience perceived with eyes closed as flying effortlessly through a multidimensional kaleidoscope of colors. Alongside this, almost all report some reduction in a sense of body, ego, and time. So I really have no idea what to think about this. If Luminate works, well then, this would perhaps be the coolest app ever created. On top of that, it could help perhaps millions of people worldwide for very cheap. I will say, though, that I am very skeptical of this being effective for most people. But honestly, I have zero idea. So what do you guys think? Is Luminate potentially the next big thing in psychedelic treatments, or is it just a company trying to capitalize on the psychedelic renaissance that we're living through? Also, do you want to see me try the Luminate app during a video? If this video gets 300 likes and 3,000 views, I will. Hopefully I won't have a bad trip on air, but anything is possible, so it is up to you, psychedelic investors. Smash that like button and leave a comment if that is something you'd like to see. Moving into company-specific news, we'll start with MindMed, MMEDF on the American OTC market, MMED on the Canadian NEO market, and MMQ on the Frankfurt Exchange. And boy, has it been quite the week, and I hope all of you are comfortable seeing red. Just as a note, for this video, we will be using the American stock prices, or the ticker MMEDF. So, MindMed started the week at $3.50 and tumbled almost every day until it finished Friday at $2.86. And this really had nothing to do with MindMed, but rather the fact that the entire wider market seems to be considering a gigantic crash. So, a reminder that if you are invested in MindMed or any other psychedelic medicine stock, you need to be a long-term investor. And if you already have a long-term vision, then this week's mini crash and perhaps the coming week's mega crash should not bother you too much. If anything, you could view this as a sale, even if it may be an extended multi-month sale. And to be clear, I am not saying that it will be a major crash, but the possibility is there. No one knows for sure what is going to happen in the markets in the coming weeks and months, and if they tell you otherwise, they are either lying to you or deluding themselves. Importantly, MindMed has lots of cash, so if their stock falters for an extended period of time, it shouldn't affect the company's long-term prospects too much. And the wider market conditions are affecting all of the stocks I'm about to talk about, so I won't repeat this after each company. Just know that the big drops we are seeing in each stock is not due to the bad news about a specific company, but rather them being caught up in the wider market context that we are in. If you want me to make a video about how I am preparing for the possible market crash, please let me know in the comments. If there seems to be lots of demand, I will make that video. But as for actual MindMed news this week, there wasn't much. The only piece worth mentioning is that MindMed has now closed their acquisition of Health Mode, a machine learning healthcare company. We talked about this partnership at length on last week's This Week in Psychedelic Stocks, so go check that out if you want to learn why this deal is so important. In short though, MindMed is making a push to be as much of a tech company as a medicines company. This is important because machine learning is going to revolutionize the entire medical industry, and any company that's not investing in the technology now will be left behind. So this deal is now finalized, completing another step in MindMed's journey. Moving on, next we have Compass Pathways, ticker symbol CMPS on the NASDAQ exchange. Compass likewise had a rough week, starting Monday at $47.83 and finishing Friday at $41.08. And again, it's not that Compass had any bad news, but rather the market decided to take a dump on all of our portfolios. In fact, like MindMed, Compass had a relatively quiet week, with their only news being the announcement that they would release their 2020 fourth quarter and full year financial results on March 9th, so in a couple of days. Just to set expectations, Compass is still in the research and development stage, so you should expect huge losses with no revenue. But this is normal, and will likely be the case for the foreseeable future. The most important number given will be how much cash on hand the company has, as it will tell us for how long Compass can continue its operations at its current expenditure rate before it needs to raise more capital, which it will need to do eventually. This will be particularly important if we are about to enter a market crash, as we would not want the company to have to raise cash when their stock is taking a beating. Infinitely more important than the financial statements, however, will be the conference call, which will take place at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and can be streamed on the company's website under their investors section. Here, Compass executives will answer questions from investors and give updates on the progress their company is making. This will likely be one of the most important days for the quarter for us retail investors, so you should definitely tune in. Often we get insights on the progress of companies on these calls that we wouldn't get anywhere else, so they are very important. I'll probably film this and release it on my channel sometime later in the day, so be on the lookout for that. Moving on, we have the only company that did not get battered this week, and that's because they're not yet public. I am, of course, talking about Atai Life Sciences. We still don't know when this company will go public, but it will probably be in quarter 3 or 4. However, if we do witness a giant market crash, I would not be surprised if they decide to hold off until things stabilize so they don't sell their shares at a price that they consider too low. This week we got news that Atai had closed a Series D financing round that saw the company get $157 million from existing investors such as Aspeyron Investment Group, Christian Angermayer, and Peter Thiel. So I have a couple things to say on this. First, it's encouraging that existing investors are willing to put ever more money into the company. It shows that these individuals and groups have confidence in Atai's success and are willing to put more than $150 million more into the company. This is also significant because it means that Atai has the capital needed to do all the necessary research and development, even if they have yet to have an IPO. And if we truly are witnessing the beginnings of a total market collapse, then Atai would have the capital to wait until a more opportune time to hold their IPO. So again, this is very good news for Atai. Next, we're going to look at some developments in some smaller companies. First up, Numinus, which has the ticker symbol NUMI on the CVE exchange. And of course, the stock price, shocker, is down for the week. It started Monday at $1.55 Canadian and ended Friday at $1.28. And we have 3 pieces of news here that we are going to cover quickly. First, Numinus announced that they received some amendments to its federal license to allow the possession, production, assembly, sale, export, and delivery for a wide variety of psychedelics, including, for the first time, ketamine and LSD. The amendment also supports Numinus Biosciences' role in activities related to mescaline, DMT, MDMA, psilocin, and psilocybin. So this is good news for Numinus and its shareholders, as it will allow them to conduct a wider array of research. Next, the company has given updates on 2 of their upcoming clinical trials. First, Numinus and a partner, Sirion, provided an update on their future compassionate access trial testing a psilocybin treatment for PTSD. This study, named PRIME, is currently just in the development phase and will assess the efficacy and safety of psilocybin-assisted motivational enhancement therapy. This trial, when it starts, will take place in Vancouver and will enroll 30 individuals with opioid, stimulant, and/or alcohol use disorders. So this update states that the protocol for this study is now finalized and that the psilocybin administration will occur in the context of a behavioral intervention consisting of motivational enhancement therapy, which is a structured counseling approach based on principles of motivational psychology and is designed to produce rapid, internally motivated change. The next upcoming trial that they gave an update on is their Compassionate Access Trial, treating PTSD with MDMA in collaboration with MAPS, a non-for-profit that is the leading developer of the treatment protocols, research, and MDMA-assisted therapy training programs. The purpose of this update is to state that the first of its kind trial in Canada, which will take place in Vancouver, has started recruiting therapists and other staff. This includes 8 Numinus therapists who graduated from the Part B of the MAPS MDMA Therapist Training Program. They also have settled on the protocol for the trial with the help from MAPS. So I find these 2 updates very exciting, especially the trial with MAPS. As we probably all know, MAPS is the leading psychedelic research body, especially as it comes to treating PTSD with MDMA. So the fact that they are partnering with Numinus is very exciting for their shareholders. I will say, though, that this is still in the very early stage, as neither trial has even started yet. But nevertheless, the news is positive. Next, we have an update on Red Light Holland, whose ticker symbol is TRIP, on the Canadian CNSX exchange. And of course, its stock fell this week, shocker, from 46 cents Canadian at open on Monday to 38 cents at close on Friday. And for those who don't know, Red Light Holland's main thing is selling psilocybin truffles for recreational use in Holland, where it is basically legal. This story, however, dips their small toe ever so slightly into the medicines market. The company's iMicrodose pack has been approved by the Brazilian Health Regulatory Agency for import to the company for use as medicine. And they did this because one patient in the country was prescribed psilocybin microdoses by a doctor. And honestly, it's kind of hilarious to me that they are importing this for only one person, but who knows? Maybe this is the start of something bigger. Brazil does have a population of over 200 million people. So if Red Light Holland can expand this, perhaps they have a shot in the country. I always say that the real money to be made in the psychedelic sector is through the creation of next generation medicines, not legalization for recreational use. So with this first patient, Red Light Holland seems to be moving in the right direction. Hopefully they soon get a second, and third, and millionth patient. And the last company we're going to look at briefly here today is Mydecine, which has a ticker symbol MYCOF on the OTC market and MYCO on the CSE market. And no surprise, MYCOF started the week at 37 cents and ended Friday at 31 cents. And the news we have for you today is that they have completed their first ever international export of psilocybin mushrooms. The company grew around 44 pounds of mushrooms in their Jamaica lab and shipped them to Canada. The company believes that natural mushrooms will be more effective in treating mental health issues than synthetic psilocybin, since magic mushrooms contain many more compounds than just psilocybin, and they argue that it is the combination of these compounds that make magic mushrooms, well, magic. So it's exciting to see this company progress, though it is, of course, like always, still early in the game. So that'll be everything for our company-specific news, but just zooming out for a second, we can see a couple big trends happening. First is that the sector is currently being hammered by the market. While this won't harm the larger companies who have north of $100 million in the bank, it could seriously hurt the smaller players who will need to refinance soon. And if their stock prices get wrecked in a coming crash, it may be game over for some companies. Despite this, however, across the board it seems that companies are progressing in their research rapidly, and it seems that a day doesn't go by that more and more updates on current and future clinical trials are given. It makes me very excited for the future of this industry, and I hope that you will be there with me. If you're enjoying this episode, tell the algorithm with your like and subscribe. It will help ensure this channel's continued existence. And don't forget, if this video gets 3,000 views and 300 likes, I will try the Luminate app on air. And click on one of the videos you see on your screen now to keep up to date with all the latest developments. Thank you so much for watching. I'm James, signing out. I'll see you next time.